The mystery takes another major turn in this episode as the investigation moves beyond the kidnapping itself and begins exposing the corruption hidden inside the hospital. What first looked like a crime planned by desperate kidnappers slowly transforms into a much bigger conspiracy, where the people responsible for the kidnapping may have been victims long before everything began. Tae-ju becomes even more suspicious of his father-in-law, Dr. Ko. Although the official investigation concludes that Dr. Ha was the mastermind behind the illegal medical practices, Tae-ju refuses to accept that explanation. He keeps thinking about Gyeongae's testimony and believes she may have only known part of the truth. Instead of seeing Dr. Ha as the person who controlled everything, Tae-ju starts believing that he was also being used by someone with even greater power. That single doubt keeps the investigation alive and shows that Tae-ju is looking beyond the obvious answers. At the police station, the authorities officially close in on their version of the case. They conclude that Dr. Ha organized the unethical medical research and recruited Miang Hi and Gyeongae to kidnap Se-yoon. Their next goal is to capture Miang Hi and bring the case to an end. However, not everyone is convinced that the investigation is really over. Senior Officer Do-sik openly tells Tae-ju that something does not feel right. The evidence appears almost too perfect, making him question whether someone has carefully arranged everything to point toward Dr. Ha. Instead of celebrating the case being solved, Do-sik suspects that someone higher up is still controlling the situation from the shadows. Tae-ju says very little, but his silence makes it clear that he has reached a similar conclusion. He already believes the real mastermind has not been exposed yet. The biggest revelation of the episode comes when Tae-ju decides to investigate why Gyeongae never received the surgery that could have saved her life. For years, Gyeongae believed the hospital rejected her because of her criminal record. Even after everything she suffered, she continued blaming herself. But Tae-ju cannot shake the feeling that there is another explanation. To uncover the truth, Tae-ju asks Se-yoon to secretly search through her father's room for hospital records. Together, they discover the applications connected to the surgery program. As Tae-ju studies the documents, a clear pattern begins to emerge. Every successful applicant has one thing in common. They all have connections to hospital sponsors. That discovery completely changes everything. Gyeongae was never rejected because of her criminal past. She was rejected because she had no financial value to the hospital. The life-saving treatment was reserved for people who could benefit the hospital through money and influence, while someone like Gyeongae was simply pushed aside. Learning the truth completely crushes her. She realizes she was not abandoned because of her mistakes, but because she became another victim of a healthcare system that valued wealth over human life. While these discoveries are unfolding, another important character begins attracting suspicion. Until now, Miang Hi has appeared to be supportive, but this episode reveals a much more calculating side of her personality. She deliberately visits Se-yoon and carefully steers the conversation toward Tae-ju. She casually mentions that Tae-ju has been coming to her office to vent about his problems, speaking in a way that suggests they have become unusually close. The conversation becomes even more uncomfortable when Se-yoon notices that Miang Hi calls Tae-ju Appa. Miang Hi offers the information so naturally that it leaves Se-yoon questioning her own husband. By the time the conversation ends, she is left wondering whether Tae-ju has been secretly meeting another woman behind her back. Miang Hi's own situation quickly becomes more complicated when Do-sik questions her about the surveillance footage from the hospital. He explains that he carefully reviewed the elevator recording involving Dr. Ha. According to the footage, Dr. Ha originally selected the button for the top floor, but after Miang Hi said something to him, he suddenly changed the destination to the basement. Do-sik also studies her lip movements during the recording and believes she said "well done" to Dr. Ha. He directly asks why she would congratulate him at such a critical moment. Miang Hi calmly dismisses the accusation. She reminds him that the surveillance footage has no audio and argues that his interpretation cannot be treated as evidence. Even so, Do-sik reveals that he already knows she had been communicating with Gyeongae throughout the entire incident, making it clear that she remains one of the investigation's biggest suspects. Outside the hospital, Miang Hi continues hiding while knowing almost nothing about the investigation. His only concern is Gyeongae. Every moment he spends away from her increases his desperation, and his emotional state becomes even more unstable. His frustration reaches a horrifying point when he encounters a grocery store owner who unknowingly makes a remark about Gyeongae after seeing the news reports. Unable to control his anger any longer, Miang Hi brutally kills the store owner. The shocking murder makes it clear that he has completely lost his patience and is willing to eliminate anyone who stands in his way. Armed with a knife, Miang Hi heads straight to the hospital. Once inside, he spots Se-yoon and immediately charges toward her. At the same time, Tae-ju realizes exactly where Miang Hi is going and races through the hospital, desperately trying to reach Se-yoon before it is too late. The episode ends at that tense moment, leaving the confrontation unresolved. At the same time, the investigation has uncovered a much darker truth. The kidnapping was only one piece of a much larger conspiracy involving corruption inside the hospital, hidden medical decisions, and powerful people who may still be protecting themselves. Dr. Ha no longer appears to be the final mastermind, and the evidence continues pointing toward someone with far greater influence. With Miang Hi closing in on Se-yoon and Tae-ju rushing to stop him, the story sets up an intense showdown while leaving the biggest mystery of all still unanswered. Will Tae-ju save Se-yoon in time, and will the real mastermind finally be exposed in the next episode?